Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here with a new knife consult video. Now this one is going to be a little bit different because I am going to do two knives at once. And I'm just going to start out by saying that's because I don't want to take the time to make two separate videos on these knives. And we'll get into a little bit about why that is. Now in front of us we have two Brous Blades. I was really excited to get to experience these knives because I have yet to experience Brous Blades. I have seen them and their work for a long time. I've always thought I was impressed by some of their quality and their design sometimes, but I never really bit on them because I never really liked some of the designs and I just didn't know enough about them. And, you know, they're known for using D2 steel in pretty much all of their knives. And while D2 is known as a solid cutting steel, it's also not a true stainless. And so I try to get stainless steels on my knives because I wear them a lot and I sweat a lot while I'm carrying them, and I don't want any of them to rust or have any problems, at least for my everyday carry knives. So that's always been my hesitation. So I was excited to get these two knives. Up top, we've got the Brous Dynamic, and down here we have the Brous XR-1. So these two knives come to me by way of my good buddy Nico. Follow him on Instagram at todaysgrail_tomorrowsbeater. Just my good friend, and really thankful that he's helped me out with so many of these blades. But he sent these knives here to the U.S. from Greece, which is where he is, to be customized by our friend Fanatic Edge. He has customized a couple of my knives now, and he sent me a couple of knives to check out, and he is just a nice guy, and he does awesome work. And so these knives were both plain stonewashed titanium and steel before they went off to be customized by him. And so these knives you will not be able to find in this configuration at any store. However, yeah, you saw that. In any case, you won't find them like this, but you will find them in a standard configuration, and then you could send them off to be customized by your pimper of choice. I do recommend Fanatic Edge, although there are some good people out there as well. So let's go ahead and get into the specs on these things. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with the Dynamic, the big guy here. So we've got a 3.375 inch blade with about 3.5 inches of cutting. That's because it is a Tanto style blade shape, and it's got those two edges going on there. We've got a 0.19 inch thick blade, nice and thick there. This one has been acid washed by Andrew over there at Fanatic Edge. Really cool finish on that. And then he gave it a nice mirror polished edge, and it is quite sharp. D2 will take a nice edge. You know, he complained a little bit that it's hard to get a perfect mirror on D2 due to its high carbon content. This one is hardened to about 60 Rockwell, and it's hollow ground here, and then it's flat ground out at the tip. It's got a nice big swedge. It's got some jimping up here that actually is quite effective. It does work. Moving back to the pivot here, we've got a ball bearing pivot. It's supposed to be smooth. It's not, but we'll get into that in just a little while. It is a flipper only, and it does lock up really nicely. It does flip out quickly if you do it the right way. I will say that this knife has one of the weakest detents I think I've ever seen on a flipper knife. You know, even a $2 knife might have a better detent sometimes. This is just really light. If you hand this to just any old schmo, they're going to just do that to it because the detent is so light. But if you know how to preload it, you can get it to fire out well. And, well, it doesn't really close all that smoothly either, and that's not because of the customizing here. You can actually see on here that the ball track has been left out of the acid edge, so it is still smooth there, just not very, it's smooth on the blade, but not smooth on the action there. Moving back to the handles, you've got 6AL4V titanium handle scales. These have been very interestingly anodized in this sort of purple and yellow setup, and for any LSU Tigers fans out there, or Lakers fans even, that's a pretty good combo right here. It's not my colors of choice, but I think it doesn't really look girly. It looks almost royal in nature. It's a nice color. To be honest, I like it. I would not mind having this color of a knife in my collection. It's got a metal back spacer here. This might be aluminum. And then let's talk about this knife overall. It's supposed to be a big sort of tactical type of knife. I don't really like the way that this knife looks. I'm not a huge fan of the aesthetic. It's just got lines everywhere. I just feel like this is it looks like a man is bent over and it's getting ready to, something bad is about to happen to this man. He has a knife head, obviously, but do you see what I'm seeing on there? There's something about the design that just makes me think of that, and I just, for whatever reason, I don't enjoy it. I don't think that any of the lines really match up very nicely, and that just bothers me, and so I'm not a huge fan of that, not gonna lie. The lock bar is really short. I did notice that. That's an interesting thing. Usually they're pretty long. I'm not really sure what that means in terms of knife making. Maybe knife makers comment down below. Let me know a little bit about what that means. This knife has been milled out, and so it is actually quite light. Speaking of light, let's shine this in there. Oh, well, it just feels like it's been milled out. I guess it hasn't been milled out. It's a very lightweight knife for the size. So while we're talking about weight, let's go ahead and pull the scale out here, see what the numbers actually show. It is set to ounces there. 6.83 ounces. It actually feels much lighter than it really is, but 6.8 ounces. Pretty heavy knife right there. So 3.5 inch blade at 6.8 ounces. That is the Brous Dynamic. So next I'm going to go ahead and try to get into the next knife here. This is the XR-1. This is a little bit more of an EDC size and style knife. That one being a little bit more tactical in nature. This one comes with a 3.5 inch overall length blade with a 3.25 inch cutting edge right there, also in D2, and more of a classic kind of a drop point style blade. It drops just a little bit more than your standard drop point, but it's got a completely full belly on the actual blade edge right there. That one has also been mirror finished. That one maybe was a little bit more mirror finished than the Dynamic over there. It's got a little cutout going on here. It does have some jimping on the blade, so you can choke up on it. There's a little bit of jimping on the handle, and it does work. Grips your hand in well. Again, riding on a ball bearing pivot. This one has a hole right here where you could theoretically open the knife if you wanted to in these ways. You could open it that way, of course. If you get the right position, you can spider flick that open. If you want to flip it, though, it is a good flipper. This one has a much stronger detent. You can hear it when it closes. Much stronger detent, and it does flip a little bit better. But still, I'm going to try to shake this closed. Not very good action. Not going to lie. I was very surprised to see that going on. Now let's check the inside of this guy. This one, I'm sorry, was the one that had been extensively milled here. Very, very, very lightweight, this XR-1. Feels a whole lot lighter. Let's get the real numbers. I thought that one was light up there, but it was 6.8 ounces. So let's pull this one over. This is riding at 3.6 ounces, so not bad at all. A very, very reasonable EDC weight. Back at the handles here, we've got these titanium scales. You saw that they've been milled out. They're a little bit more ergonomic. They look a little bit more normal. I do like the lines on this knife. I think that they all are very cohesive. They form a uniform design. It all flows. I do appreciate this design much better. You've got these standoffs back here, also done in titanium. They have been anodized, and this also has frame lock here. This one is a little bit longer, more traditional style right here. And then, of course, the blade has again been acid washed. So I'm going to set this down, and I'm going to think about my final thoughts, and we'll talk about them here. So I wanted to make this video a little bit longer because I needed a couple of minutes to really collect my thoughts and come up with the way to describe these knives, and this is after learning some relatively interesting, I'll call it, information about Brous Blades. Perhaps you might have heard about the whole situation in terms of production knives and custom knives and what they were calling what and how much they were charging, but let's talk about these two knives and how much they cost. So right now you can get a division flipper here, not a division, a dynamic, excuse me, for about $200. I saw them on sale at Blade HQ for $200 as of the making of this video. This knife was $459, so $460. This is very interesting to me because of a few things. Well, in terms of the quality of these knives and the fit and finish, they're clearly made of titanium and steel, a pretty good steel. But there's just something about these knives that just does not feel right to me, and I can't quite put my finger on it. The dynamic here has a very, very, very weak detent. Just also a very bad action. Just a very weak detent. It's very easy to overcome it easily. You can get the knife to flip well if you know what you're doing, but it's not satisfying. If you know what I mean about a satisfying action, let me bring out some examples here. The 0392 has the most satisfying action that I've probably ever experienced on a production flipper. The Riot Knives Bodega, the Steelcraft series, excellent flipping action. Very, very, very smooth on the close. How about this? This was a little bit more expensive. This one here is $575, but this is the McGinnis Tashi Barusha Rowdy High-Tech, maybe the smoothest and the fastest closing knife I've ever experienced. But neither of these knives have particularly good action. Both of them are quite bad, and this is not due to the modification. The detent ball tracks have been left clean of any type of acid etching, and so I don't believe that the change in the action is due to that right now. So I may need to experience some more Brous Blades, but something about the action on both of these knives is just not quite there. So are your knives much smoother? Are these just different? Is it because of the acid etching? Maybe. But there's just something wrong with these particular knives. I got a piece of my nail taken off there while I was opening it. I guess all the components are there for it to be nice, but it just is a little bit weird. The detent on this one is strong, but the action is just not very good. It's very lightweight. Sometimes really lightweight knives make me just a little uneasy because I like a little weight in my hand just for control and everything. And then let's talk about EDCing these knives, carrying these knives, actually being able to productively use these knives. And I'm going to show you the pocket clips on these things. These have got to be the worst pocket clips I've ever experienced. I'm being a little bit dramatic today because I was actually just supremely disappointed in both of these knives. I tend to be pretty positive about most knives. I can try most things from a Kershaw to a Z Hunter to a $3,000 custom, and I can appreciate things about each of them, but I will say that these clips have got to be some of the worst I've ever experienced. They're both similar in a lot of ways. I'll say that the Dynamics is much worse in terms of everyday use, but they have very similar features that make them difficult to like. So on the Dynamic, the clip actually sits below the main sort of level of the knife, and while that is sort of a design feature, it does not really allow your clothing or your pocket to enter into that little spot very easily. You can see that there's a very narrow range where the cloth can fit underneath the clip and then go into your pocket. Add to that everything about this clip is sharp. It is a milled piece of titanium, but it is thin and the edges are sharp, and the tip is relatively sharp, and then the little piece that holds it up there, that triangular piece there, is also quite sharp. So this will tear your pockets up within minutes. Absolutely. And it's uncomfortable for your hands, and it doesn't really ride particularly deep, so a whole lot of your pocket is sticking out on that one. Now this one does slide in and out a little bit more easily. I carried this one a couple of times because it was easier to carry. I really only carried this one once because I just couldn't stand it. Everything about it was just off. And then this one was a little bit easier. It's lighter weight, it's smaller, but this is still a very sharp edge right here with that flat piece of metal. The triangular piece is sharp and all the edges are sharp. Just very uncomfortable. It does ride a little bit lower, obviously. So this is going to be your better choice for EDC, and this one is just not going to be your choice, period. So final conclusions here are that these two knives are just not for Dr. Frunkey. I really did not enjoy either of these knives. I don't really see that these knives are worth the money that we're paying for them. I mean, they have an interesting design at least. $460 for this knife. I just don't really like the design too much on this one either. It's a little bit better, but it's not really beautiful. I will say you could get this knife for the same price. The Steelcraft Series Bodega for the same price. You could have this knife for less money. The Brous Blades Microtech Stitch. And it costs more money even than my standby, the 0392 BRN-GLD. So I don't see where the value is in this knife. There are too many knives at that price point that are just way better. I cannot recommend that knife at that price point. Maybe this knife at $200 would be much more appealing, but it's more than twice that much to buy it. I don't understand it. This one at $200 is understandable, but just not up to the standards and quality that I would hope for at that price point either. So this is a very rare thing. I tend to sort of talk about all the great things about a lot of pocket knives and just go on and on about how nice they are and how good they are. And this is unusual for me, but I have been communicating with my buddy and telling him that I just wasn't enjoying these knives, and he said, go right ahead and discuss them and be honest about them and tell me what you like and don't like, and we'll figure it out. And so that's what I'm doing here. And I hate to be negative about something, but these are just not quite right. If you have Brous flippers and you love them, tell me about it. I honestly have spoken to 3 or 4 different members of the knife community that I trust, that I have open conversations with regularly, people with a lot of experience with a lot of different knives, some guys much older than I am who have had a lot more years and have had many Brous blades tell me that they're all not good, that there's something wrong with almost all of them. I heard a story about all these clips breaking on a lot of people and then people not being able to get their clips fixed in a timely fashion. Lots of problems, too, on the other end in terms of customer service and whatnot. So look into those rumors yourselves. I looked it up in a couple of other places and found it to more or less be true. So long story short, guys, I do not recommend these knives. Find something else. There are so many better knives than both of these out there. I'm sorry, Nico, to slam these so hard, but I appreciate you guys watching. If you've watched all the way to this point, really appreciate it. Click like and subscribe. Check me out on Instagram at Dr. Frunkey. And as always, guys, this is Dr. Frunkey saying take care and don't buy these knives.